Well, that change in the top military hierarchy came as a surprise to many. But one person who thanked the outgoing Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, is President Bola Tinubu. And of course, he also thanked other service chiefs for their patriotic service and dedicated leadership. The question now on the lips of many Nigerians is, what is the implication of these changes of Nigeria's evolving security matrix? So tonight, Babajide Ogunsanwo, who is the founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, chief data analyst, is here to share more facts and vital insight on the evolving defense architecture in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Babajide, for joining us on the news at 10.
Good evening, Anne.
Now, on the new service chiefs, the press release from the president said that the move, in his words, is to strengthen the national security architecture in Nigeria. But are there hard facts when we look at these things that point to what could have influenced the president's decision?
First, is there lots of information that I have that the president is holding on to that 10-letter word called classified. So we can't comment on things that are classified. However, we can talk about the facts. And on these, there are about 3 facts that I probably want to talk about. The first is, you know, Anne, in the United States and in the United Kingdom, they have a statute that gives the Chief of Defense Staff, the highest ranked military officer in the United States right now, General Dan Clare, and the highest ranked military officer in the United Kingdom, Air Vice Marshal Richard Knighton. Their positions are tenured. In simple terms, once they get into office, they know the amount of days they'll be spending before they leave. In Nigeria, we don't have that system. Once you're in office as the Chief of Defense Staff, you are most likely going to be removed, and a lot of information will start flying around about why you were removed. So the first is because we don't have a tenured system, the president at will can remove you. Now, the second point, Anne, is that in the president's official press release, he never used the word sack. What he used was change. And he even further went to thank the outgoing Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, and the other service chiefs, and 2 words he used: patriotic service and dedicated leadership. So we have to consciously avoid using that derogatory term, sacked, because it affects the psyche of not just the war against terrorism, but it is erroneous to use such terms, especially to men and women that have all their lives served Nigeria. Now, to the third and perhaps interesting fact is, let's take a look at the average tenure spent by Chief of Defense Staff to see if there's anything unusual. The fact we have is the appointment of General Oluyede makes him the 12th Chief of Defense Staff since 1999, since the return to democracy. However, we've had only 3 previous Chief of Defense Staffs and that have exceeded 1,000 days in office. Only 3 out of all the previous 11. So these 3 that have exceeded 1,000 days, we'll classify them as outliers. Now, if you look at the average of the other Chief of Defense Staff, the average is approximately 633 days. So on an average, we see previous Chief of Defense Staff taking out those outliers, spending a little over 600 days. So if you take a look at what is in front of you, looking at the trends, there's really nothing unusual. General Christopher Musa spent 854 days. General Liu Irabo spent 875 days. We see the outlier, General Olonisaki under President Buhari spent over 5 years. So overall, looking at the facts and sticking to the facts, there is nothing significantly unusual that has gone on, apart from things that we cannot comment about, which is classified information.
Well, Babajide, I mean, a lot of people will be asking, does the change in service chiefs mean a change in the security architecture of Nigeria? Does it mean that security and defense strategies will change in the country?
Every time we have a change in service chiefs, we can't keep changing strategies. We can change operational tactics, but I expect that the strategies will remain approximately the same unless it is essential for us to change strategies, especially if we look at the public perception numbers. The numbers overall are positive, with more Nigerians saying that security is improving in their regions, except the Northeast. So if you take a look at the security perception index in the last period, what we see is that when these outgoing service chiefs came in, the national security average was 47%. 47% of Nigerians said security was improving. In other words, majority of Nigerians said security wasn't improving. Now the national average is at 54%. So what we've seen is since June 2023, when these service chiefs came in, to now, we've seen that the national average has consistently improved. The challenge has been in the Northeast. Remember in June 2023, when they came in, 57% of families living in the Northeast gave a positive rating. Now that number is slightly down to 56%. So what we expect is operationally we'll see a lot more emphasis in the Northeast and in the Northwest. However, what is the challenge facing the incoming Chief of Defense Staff, General Oluyede? It is what ACLED classifies as, if we look at the World Conflict Index, it allows us to clearly see where the challenges lie. And the current challenge is Nigeria is still classified in terms of conflict rating as extreme, classified in the same bracket as Colombia, Sudan, Lebanon, Syria, Mexico. So one of the things that we'll expect the incoming Chief of Defense Staff to do is to do all it takes to change the narrative. Sometimes beyond operational plans, a lot of things have to be done in the media space to change the global narrative that Nigeria is really not in extreme conflict. Yes, we're in conflict, perhaps there's high conflict, but what we see right now is a wrong positioning of Nigeria as extreme conflict.
All right, Babajide, before we go, I mean, when you look at the recent poll, Nigerians are saying that they feel safer now. So what will be the goal of these service chiefs going forward?
So the service chiefs have to also be data-driven. If we take a look at the last report and if we take a look at the information from the Global Terrorism Index, even though we are awaiting the 2025 report, as at 2024, that information, if you take a look at it, show that Nigeria was at its all-time lowest since the Boko Haram incidents began in 2002. So if you look at the trend in terms of number of terrorist attacks, what the Global Terrorism Database, the report from the Global Terrorism Database was that 2024 total number of terrorist attacks last year, less than 100. We are waiting for the results this year. It is still unclear if this year's results will be better than last year. We can't speculate on it. But one of the goals for the new chiefs will be to ensure that terrorism continues on this declining trend. But perhaps there are three things that I want to end with first. Now, the first is, what we expect is the new chiefs will have a firmer handshake with the defense intelligence community, and it seems that yes, in recent times we've seen a growing relationship, synergy between operations and intelligence. Now, the second thing is we have to become, and we need to become more creative. And you know, we talk about, we always hear about the carrots and the stick. Sometimes, you know, I have here, sometimes the carrots might even be your stick. Yeah. So we need to see a lot more creativity in how we see a lot of our operations. Yeah, you use the carrot or the stick, but sometimes we can use the carrot as a stick. So we need more creativity. But perhaps finally, yes, we've seen outgoing chiefs. We see new chiefs coming in. We shouldn't forget the lessons of the past. And one of the lessons the former Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Gwabi Musa, dropped was that, and if you take a look at some of the remarks he made earlier this year, one major one that strikes out is that how can we win if we do not collaborate? So what we expect is the new service chiefs would increase their level of collaboration, Army, Air Force, Navy, and also enhance collaboration with the Defense Intelligence Agency led by General Parker.
Thank you very much. Good place to end this discussion. Thank you, Babajide Ogunso, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's Chief Data Analyst, for your contribution.
And don't forget, sometimes the carrots can be used as a stick.
Yes.